Okay, welcome back. So today's assignment for 323 tuning etude is going to be a pretty easy one, I think. This will mostly be helpful if your strings are already in tune. If they are not, please let me know in the recording submission so that I'm aware. But the idea of this is to hear where your placement on your fingerings are if they're accurate. For example, in measure 1, we're playing that low open G string. Then for two quarter notes. Then you're going to play the fingering for the on the D string for that higher G, right? So what you're going to be doing is essentially listening to make sure that your finger placement is 100% exactly correct within just centimeters of each other, millimeters spot on your fingerboard. The reason being is that tapes aren't always 100%. Because while you're playing over the months and months you've been playing, you probably haven't been messing with your bridge, the distance from the bridge to the neck, from the bridge to the fingerboard, and vice versa. So that distance could be changing and altering depending on how often you tune your instrument, what the weather's like, if your instrument goes out and back in a lot with humidity and just the air compression around it just changes, right? Or the density around the air changes. So, that's how measure 1 works, all right? And I'll demonstrate in just a minute. Then measure 2, luckily cellos are just playing an open A. In the orchestra classroom, the reason why you're playing an open A is because violins, violas are playing a fourth finger A, and they're figuring out if they're playing that fourth finger A in tune with the cellos. And then violins, violas, you play two four-finger A's, that's fourth finger on the D string, and then you try to match it with an open A afterwards for 2 quarter notes. Measure 3. Then we're going to go to a high D. That's your fingering for a D on the A string. And then you're going to play the open D string, seeing if that fingering is correct. And then you go back to a G on the D string to an open G string on the last measure. And this is supposed to be played pretty slow so that way you're being cognizant of the pitch. Now, what may help you with this exercise, if your instrument is in tune, is, of course, having a tuner, all right? You can put the tuner on, and while you're bowing, you can see whether or not your fingers are in the right place. If it's going to the right, the needle, that means you're going too sharp. You need to bring your finger closer to the nut or the scroll. And just like it's millimeter, not a whole bunch. And then if it's if the needle's to the left of the note that you're supposed to be matching, then you have to go away from the nut or closer to the bridge, all right? And again, just by millimeters, the tapes should be pretty accurate, but they're not always 100%, like I just mentioned. So let's try it on the viola real quick, so they can show you what the violin viola are doing first. Okay, so my viola's already been in tune. You can see in the video here, I also have my tuner set up next to the camera so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So this is the very first measure. I'm playing the open G to the third finger G. So first, let's listen to it, not so much looking at the tuner, and see what we're doing here. Remember, the fingering is on the D string. We're playing open G to the third finger on the D string to match pitch. So here's G. Should sound the same. That's measure 1. Now, when you're trying to hear the difference and see the difference of the tuner, you want it to be the same thing that you just saw for your open G string. Now you can tell if it's a little bit out of tune if your finger is just a hair away from the spot it needs to be, and you can hear the difference. See how it looked on the tuner? You can also hear that it's not exactly like it's supposed to sound like. I'm going to move my finger back. Again, I'm making sure that my finger is in the right spot. Here it is the opposite direction. See, now we're hearing G sharp rather than a G. And my finger is just barely off the tape. Okay? So we're working on accuracy. Same thing when it goes to measure 2. We're using that fourth finger A on the D string and the open A. Now, of course, the A string is going to sound a little bit brighter because you're using the longer string and it plays louder, but it should sound pitch-wise exactly the same. Here it is, a little bit flatter, just a hair, just a hair. Where is it? Just a hair back, right behind the tape. Let's see what it sounds like. Here it is again. Totally different sound. Here it is on the tape again now, in tune. Here it is just past the tape, just past it. Okay, so that's what we're listening for, making sure that we're matching pitch. And the same thing works for the high D, the open D. Okay. Now you may notice that if you play a in tune high D, your D string is going to naturally vibrate just a little bit. And you might see it not vibrate, but you'll hear that lower D play. And you'll hear it ring. So here's my finger just a little lower than the string, the tape for the high D. Here it is in tune. A little higher. So you can not only hear it, but you can see the difference. Now this works the same way with cello as it does with the other instruments. Every instrument works the same way. When you're playing one pitch that is the same as an open string, so a fingering for a note is the same note as an open string, but just either lower an octave or higher an octave, or even the same exact pitch, like that fourth finger A for violins, violas, you gotta hear it's gonna be in tune. So it doesn't matter if it's lower or higher, you can still tell the difference whether or not the pitch is in tune or not. And that's what number 323 is focusing on. So the easiest way that I can see this and hear this is that your instrument's in tune and that your whole instrument, including your fingers, most importantly, are on the screen, okay? You don't need the tuner like I have here for the video, but you do need to have the entire instrument, including your hands, especially your left hand, in the video screen, and your instrument should be in tune as much as you can get it. If you don't know how to get it in tune, watch my old videos that I posted on YouTube that tells you how to do that. In fact, I'll add a link to this Flipgrid so you can go back and review how to tune your instrument, how to move the pegs properly and the fine tuners with your tuner. And then another way you can do it if you're not comfortable doing that is take it to the music shop. Now, I'll tell you this much though, if you take it to the music shop like Music and Arts, they can tune it for you, no cost, I don't think. Yeah, they shouldn't charge you to tune your instrument. However, because it's going in and outside of a building, the air pressure is going to change around it because it's colder outside than it is inside. So the wood's going to compress and expand appropriately. And so you'll, like in the cold weather, it expands a lot. So the strings get out of tune. And when you go in the room, the wood kind of shrinks together. And so it gets back to a sharp tuning. And so you got to make sure that you're paying attention where you're tuning your instrument, right? Or you're recording it. So be aware of that. Anyways, good luck in recordings, and I can't wait to see them. Bye-bye now.